There is a specific kind of guilt that feels like a physical weight in the center of your chest. It doesn't arrive after a great transgression. It comes in the quiet moments. It comes after you let a phone call go to voicemail because you knew you didn't have the energy for the conversation. It comes after you finally say no to a request that would have cost you your entire evening, your peace of mind. It comes after you choose yourself, even in the smallest way. And in that moment, an inner tribunal convenes. The arguments are swift and brutal. You were selfish. You were unkind. You disappointed them. You, who are supposed to be the understanding one, the patient one, the good one, you failed. The guilt is not a gentle reminder. It is a verdict. It feels ancient, absolute, and true. And so, you cave. You call back, your voice full of apology. You send a text, over-explaining why you couldn't. You reverse your decision, sacrificing your boundary on the altar of someone else's comfort. And for a brief moment, the terrible weight of the guilt recedes, replaced by the familiar, draining ache of self-abandonment. You have been told, this is empathy, that you feel things so deeply, that your heart is so open, that you cannot bear to cause another person a moment of discomfort. But if this is empathy, why does it feel so much like a prison? Why does your compassion for others so often require cruelty towards yourself? This feeling, this powerful, coercive guilt, is not a sign of your heightened morality. It is the lock on the cage. It is the invisible chain that keeps you tethered to a dynamic that is slowly, quietly, draining the life from you. It is the primary tool of control in a relational pattern that thrives on your goodness, your hope, and most of all, your fear of being seen as the bad guy. The paradox is that the more you try to be good, the more you feed a dynamic that is fundamentally unhealthy. Your very virtue becomes the fuel for the dysfunction. You are trying to bring light into a room that has no windows, and you are doing it by setting yourself on fire. But this is only the surface of the mechanism. The deeper truth is far more uncomfortable, because it involves not just what they are doing to you, but what you are unconsciously doing for them. The guilt is not just an emotion, it is a psychological transaction, and to understand it, we must look into the mirror of the unconscious, a place where our best intentions and our deepest wounds are tangled together. This is where the work of Carl Jung becomes not a theory, but a map out of the maze. He would not have seen this merely as a conflict between a good person and a bad person. He would have seen a devastatingly effective psychological loop, powered by projection and shadow. The guilt you feel is not an accurate measure of your actions. It is a measure of your distance from a role you were taught you must play, the role of the eternally good, patient, and accommodating person. This role is what Jung would call the persona. For the empath, or the person with a highly sensitive and attuned nature, the good person persona is not just a social mask. It is a core identity. It is a heavy coat you were given to wear so long ago, you've forgotten it isn't your own skin. This coat was your key to survival. It earned you love, or at least a temporary absence of disapproval. It made you feel safe, valuable, and needed. In a healthy environment, this persona is flexible. You can take the coat off. You can be tired. You can be angry. You can be unavailable, and you are still worthy of love. But when this persona becomes entangled in a narcissistic dynamic, the coat becomes a straitjacket. The other person in this dynamic instinctively recognizes your persona. They see the good person coat and know it is their source of warmth, validation, and emotional regulation. They don't love you. They love what the coat provides. And so, any attempt to take the coat off, to set a boundary, to have a need of your own, to express a negative emotion, is met with a swift and powerful reaction. It might be overt anger, a guilt trip, a sudden coldness, or the classic, "you've changed." These reactions are designed to do one thing, to make you put the coat back on. And the tool they use, the tool your own psyche has been conditioned to respond to, is guilt. The guilt is the alarm that screams, "Warning, you are stepping out of your role. You are taking off the coat. You will no longer be good, and therefore, you will no longer be loved." This is why the guilt feels so life-threatening. It's not about letting someone down over a small favor. On an unconscious level, it triggers a primal fear of abandonment. The fear is not that they will be mad at you. It is that your very identity as a lovable person will be revoked. But there is another layer to this, and it is the most subtle and powerful of all. It concerns what you see when you look at them. An empathic person, full of a genuine desire to heal and connect, does not see the manipulative pattern clearly. Instead, you see their potential. You see the wounded child inside them. You see the good person they could be, if only someone loved them enough, if only someone was patient enough. This is the great illusion. This is what Jung called projection. You are taking the gold of your own soul, your capacity for growth, your empathy, your kindness, your willingness to change, and you are projecting it onto them. You are essentially falling in love with a reflection of your own goodness. You are not in a relationship with the person who is actually in front of you. You are in a relationship with the person you believe they are capable of becoming. And this belief is fueled entirely by the qualities that exist inside of you. They tell you a story of a difficult past, and your compassion floods in. They show a flicker of vulnerability, and your hope surges. You see these moments not as brief exceptions to a consistent pattern of self-absorption, but as proof of the real person underneath. You think, if I just hold on, if I am just a little more understanding, a little more forgiving, I can help this beautiful, hidden soul emerge. You are trying to rescue a projection. You are pouring your love, your energy, your very life force into a mirror. The person in the dynamic learns very quickly that showing you these flickers of potential is the most effective way to keep you hooked. It resets the cycle. It makes you double down on your efforts, convinced that a breakthrough is just around the corner. And here is the cruelest part of the trap. Whenever you feel exhausted and want to pull away, the guilt returns with a vengeance. But this time, it's doubled. There is the primary guilt of being bad for setting a boundary. But there is a secondary, deeper guilt. The guilt of abandoning the good person you projected onto them. You feel like you are giving up on them, that you are failing the wounded soul you promised to save. But you cannot fail something that was never truly there. You are not abandoning them. You are beginning the painful process of withdrawing your own projection. You are taking your gold back. And the psyche experiences this withdrawal as a profound loss, and it codes that loss as guilt. This is where we must talk about the shadow. The concept of the shadow is one of Carl Jung's most vital contributions. The shadow is not evil. It is simply everything we have repressed or disowned about ourselves because we were taught it was unacceptable. For the person trapped in the good person persona, the shadow contains all the necessary tools for freedom. What is in the empath's shadow? Anger. The capacity for a clean, righteous no. The ability to prioritize one's own needs without apology. The willingness to disappoint someone in order to protect oneself. The courage to be the bad guy in someone else's story. Your fear of being bad is, in reality, a fear of your own shadow. It is a fear of your own power. You have spent a lifetime defining yourself by your light, your kindness, your gentleness. To access your anger, to draw a hard line, feels like a betrayal of your very self. It feels like becoming the thing you despise. The manipulative pattern knows this. It relies on your fear of your own shadow. When you finally get angry, they will call you crazy. When you set a boundary, they will call you selfish. When you stop explaining yourself, they will call you cold and cruel. They are holding up a mirror to your greatest fear, that if you stop being the good person, you will become a monster. And because your identity is so wrapped up in that persona, you believe them. Their accusation lands with the force of a psychic blow because it confirms the terrifying whisper of your own conditioned mind. The guilt rushes in to correct this behavior, to force you back into the light, back into the persona, back into the cage. The path to freedom is not to become a bad person. It is to integrate your shadow. It is to recognize that anger is not the opposite of love. It is a vital part of a healthy psyche. It is the immune system of the soul. It is the energy that says, you have trespassed, this far and no further. It is to understand that saying no to another is often the most profound way of saying yes to yourself. Integrating the shadow means taking off the heavy, waterlogged coat of the good person persona and allowing yourself to be a whole human being. A whole human being is sometimes tired. A whole human being is sometimes angry. A whole human being has needs and limits. A whole human being can be kind and compassionate, but their kindness does not come at the cost of their own soul. When you begin this process, the guilt will be at its most intense. It is the death rattle of the old pattern. It is the protest of the ego that is terrified of losing its defining identity. Your mind will scream at you that you are making a terrible mistake. You will be tempted 1,000 times to put the coat back on, just to stop the unbearable feeling. This is the moment of choice. Can you sit in the fire of that guilt, knowing what it is? Can you look at it and say, I see you? You are not a moral truth. You are a conditioned response. You are a memory of an old survival strategy that no longer serves me. You are the chain, and I am letting you go. This process often begins not with a bang, but with a whimper. It starts with one unanswered text, one no that you don't take back. It starts with feeling the full, agonizing force of the guilt and not acting on it. You just sit with it. You breathe through it. You let it wash over you without letting it command you. And a strange thing happens. The guilt, which felt like it would kill you, does not. It crests, and then it begins, ever so slowly, to recede. And in its place, there is a tiny, quiet space. It might feel empty at first. It might even feel lonely. But that space is the beginning of yourself. It is the ground where a new, more authentic identity can begin to grow. This journey requires you to mourn. You must mourn the good person you thought you were, recognizing that this identity, while it once protected you, also kept you small and trapped. More painfully, you must mourn the person you thought they were. You must let go of the beautiful, shimmering projection you created and face the reality of the person who was willing to exploit your goodness for their own comfort. This is a grief as real as any other. You are losing a dream. You are losing the hope that your love could be the one thing that would save them. The truth is, your love cannot save them. Only they can do that. Your job was never to save them. Your job is, and always has been, to save yourself. As you continue to withdraw your projection, your perception will clear. The little inconsistencies you used to ignore will become glaring. The subtle manipulations you used to explain away will become obvious. The lack of genuine reciprocity will become undeniable. You will start to see the dynamic not through the fog of hope and projection, but with the sharp clarity of reality. This clarity is painful, but it is also liberating. It is the truth, and the truth, as they say, sets you free. But first, it can make you feel very lost. The guilt will still try to ambush you. It's a well-worn neural pathway. A certain tone of voice, a particular phrase, can trigger it instantly. The work is to become an observer of your own inner state. When the guilt arises, you learn not to merge with it. You say, "Ah, there it is. The guilt program is running." You don't have to get on the train. You can simply watch it pass by. This is the process of what Jung called individuation. It is the journey from being an unconscious participant in a collective or familial pattern to becoming a conscious, whole, and integrated individual. For the empath caught in this dynamic, individuation means differentiating yourself from the role of rescuer. It means finding your worth not in how useful you are to others, but in your own intrinsic being. It means developing an inner center of gravity so that you are no longer pulled into the orbit of other people's chaos. This doesn't mean you become cold or unfeeling. This is the great lie the fear tells you. In fact, you become capable of a much more authentic and discerning form of compassion. You can feel for someone's pain without making it your responsibility to fix it. You can be kind, but your kindness now has a strong, flexible boundary around it. You learn that the most compassionate thing you can do for someone caught in a narcissistic pattern is to refuse to play the game. Your withdrawal of energy, your refusal to enable the dynamic, is the only thing that creates the possibility for them to ever face themselves. You are no longer a crutch. You are a mirror reflecting their own behavior back at them, and you are doing it by simply walking away. The fear of being bad begins to transform into the quiet pride of being sovereign. You realize that your refusal to be manipulated is not an act of aggression. It is an act of profound self-respect. You start to trust the signals of your own body, that knot in your stomach before you see them, that feeling of exhaustion after you talk to them. You stop calling it my anxiety and start calling it my wisdom. Your body was trying to tell you the truth all along. You were just too busy listening to the arguments of your conditioned mind. If this journey names something you have been feeling but could never put into words, take a moment to acknowledge that. This recognition is the first light breaking through the fog. It is the beginning of trusting your own perception over the story you have been told. Think of that heavy coat of goodness. The process of healing is learning to take it off, piece by piece. At first, you might just unbutton the top button by not answering a text immediately. The cold air of guilt hits your skin, and it's shocking, but you survive. Then, you might slip one arm out by saying no to a weekend plan. The guilt feels like a storm, but the storm passes. Eventually, you learn to shrug the entire coat off and let it fall to the floor, and you stand there in your own skin, perhaps for the first time. You feel vulnerable, you feel exposed, but you also feel light. You feel free. You can move in ways you couldn't before. You can breathe more deeply. The chronic exhaustion begins to lift because you are no longer spending 90% of your life force managing someone else's emotions and wrestling with your own guilt. The person in the dynamic will not understand this. They will say you've become cold. They will say you've become selfish. Let them. You must allow them to have their story about you. Their story is no longer your reality. Your reality is the newfound peace in your own nervous system. Your reality is the quiet joy of a morning where you are not rehearsing a difficult conversation. Your reality is the freedom of making a choice based on your own desire, not on the fear of someone else's reaction. The final stage of this liberation is when you can look back at the dynamic not with rage, but with a kind of detached wisdom. You can see the pattern for what it was, a dance between two wounded psyches, a lock and a key. You were the key that fit their lock of needing constant validation. They were the lock that fit your key of needing to be good to feel worthy. By withdrawing, you have broken the key. The lock may go in search of another key, but that is no longer your concern. You can even find a strange kind of gratitude for the experience, not because it was pleasant, but because the pain of it was so great that it forced you into the most important journey of your life, the journey back to yourself. It was the crisis that forced your individuation. It was the fire that burned away the persona and revealed the unshakable core of who you are. Your kindness is not a weakness, it is a superpower. But like any superpower, it must be wielded with wisdom and discernment. When you give it away indiscriminately, it drains you. When you offer it from a place of wholeness, with strong boundaries, it can change the world, starting with your own. The guilt was the signal that you were giving it away to a place that could not receive it. It was a signpost pointing you back home. So when that old, familiar pang of guilt arises, learn to greet it with a quiet smile. "Hello, old friend," you can say. "Thank you for trying to keep me safe in the old way. But I am safe now. I don't need you anymore." And you turn your attention back to the quiet, solid ground of your own being, a ground you have earned with courage, with tears, and with the radical, revolutionary act of choosing yourself. My kindness no longer requires my self-betrayal. This vow, this quiet declaration, is not the end of the story. It is the end of the preface. It is the moment you close the book that was written for you by others and pick up the pen to write your own. But the first blank pages can be terrifying. The muscle memory of the old story is profound, and it lives not just in your mind, but in the very tissues of your body. Let's talk about your body, because your body has been keeping the score. The guilt, the fear of being bad, the constant state of alert, these are not abstract concepts, they are biochemical realities. For years, your nervous system has been conditioned to exist in a low-grade state of fight, flight, or freeze. You might know it as a constant, subtle tension in your shoulders, a jaw you have to consciously unclench, a breath that never seems to go deep enough. It's the feeling of being perpetually braced for an emotional impact. When you considered setting a boundary, your heart rate would quicken. Adrenaline and cortisol would flood your system, the same hormones that would fire if you were facing a physical predator. Your body could not distinguish between the threat of a tiger and the threat of their disapproval, because on a primal level, disapproval meant abandonment, and abandonment meant death. This is the body memory layer of the trauma. The guilt wasn't just a thought. It was a visceral, physiological alarm screaming, "Danger, conform, go back to the role that keeps you safe." The work of healing, then, is as much a physical process as it is a psychological one. When you successfully hold a boundary and sit through the storm of guilt without caving, you are, for the first time, teaching your nervous system a new lesson. You are showing it, through direct experience, that you can disappoint someone and survive. The first time you do this, your body might tremble. You might feel sick to your stomach. You might be overwhelmed with a desire to fix it. This is the withdrawal from the chemical cocktail of codependency. But if you can stay with it, if you can breathe into that shaking and place a hand on your own chest, you will feel the moment it passes. And on the other side of that wave is something new, a quiet, a stillness, a deep, full breath that feels like the first sip of water after days of thirst. This is the feeling of your nervous system entering a state of safety and social engagement, the ventral vagal state. It is the physiological state of home. As you practice this, your body begins to unlearn the old conditioning. The chronic tension begins to melt. You sleep more deeply. That persistent brain fog starts to lift because your brain is no longer dedicating all its resources to threat assessment. You start to inhabit your body not as a battlefield, but as a sanctuary. Your physical self becomes your staunchest ally, your most reliable compass. That knot in your stomach is no longer anxiety to be medicated away. It is information to be honored. That feeling of exhaustion is no longer your fault for not being resilient enough. It is a clear signal that you are in the presence of an energy drain. You learn to trust your gut because your gut has been trying to speak to you all along. This newfound groundedness will inevitably face a critical test. This is the late practical test, the final exam of the old dynamic. It will come after a period of quiet. You've been practicing your boundaries. You've been reclaiming your energy. You might even be starting to feel a little proud of yourself. And then, your phone will light up. It will be them. The message will not be angry. It will not be demanding. It will be perfectly crafted to bypass your new logical defenses and aim straight for the heart of your old projection. It might say, "I was just listening to that song we loved, and I thought of you. I hope you're okay." Or, "You were right about so many things. I've been doing a lot of work on myself." Or the most potent of all, "I just miss my friend." In that moment, the old machinery will whir to life. You will feel a jolt, a physical pang in your chest. That is the body memory of the hope you once had. The guilt program will try to launch. They're reaching out. They're hurting. Maybe this time it's different. Being cold now would be cruel. You would be the bad guy. This is the moment of truth. The old you would have been consumed by this. You would have agonized, rehearsed replies, and likely responded with a flood of your own warmth, reopening the very door you worked so hard to close. But the new you, the you that is integrating your shadow, does something different. You feel the jolt, you feel the pang of guilt, and you do not merge with it. You observe it. You say, "Ah, I see you. The rescue program is running. The hope projection is being triggered." You have created just enough space between the stimulus and your reaction to introduce consciousness. In that space, you can look at the message with clear eyes. You can see what is not there. There is no specific apology for their actual behavior. There is no genuine accountability. There is no acknowledgement of the pain they caused you. It is a vague, emotionally evocative statement designed to elicit a response. It is a lure. It is what is known as a hoover, an attempt to suck you back into the dynamic. And your shadow, now your ally, provides the necessary tool. Not rage, but clarity. Not cruelty, but clean energy. You might choose not to respond at all, recognizing that silence is a complete answer. Or you might type a response that is calm, kind, and utterly impenetrable. I appreciate you reaching out. I wish you all the best. There is no opening, no question, no emotional hook. You are not offering your energy. You are not feeding the dynamic. You are holding your ground. And when you hit send, or when you simply put the phone down, you will feel the aftershock of the old guilt. But this time, it will be weaker. It will feel like a distant echo. And underneath it, you will feel a solid, unshakable sense of your own center. You will have passed the test. You have proven to yourself, on a cellular level, that your peace is more valuable than their comfort. You have chosen yourself, not out of selfishness, but out of profound wisdom. This is the real meaning of integrating the shadow. It's not about becoming a dark or angry person. It is about reclaiming the parts of yourself you disowned to be good. Your shadow holds not just your anger, but your fierce, life-affirming no. It holds your ambition, which you were taught was selfish. It holds your creativity, which you put aside to take care of others. It holds your right to rest, to play, to be imperfect, to simply be. Integrating your shadow is like a nation that has been at civil war, finally signing a peace treaty with itself. The good persona government no longer has to spend all its resources suppressing the bad shadow rebels. Now, all that energy, all that power is available for a new project. The project of building a whole, authentic, and fulfilling life. You redirect the immense energy you once used to manage their feelings and wrestle with your guilt, and you pour it into your own work, your own health, your own joy. As you move forward, the signs of the old pattern become your signposts for the new path. That familiar mental fog that used to descend after a confusing conversation, you now recognize it as the smokescreen of gaslighting, and you simply walk out of the room. The compulsion to endlessly replay a conversation in your head, trying to find the perfect sequence of words to make them finally understand. You now see it as a futile attempt to control the uncontrollable, and you gently redirect your mind to the present moment. That sudden drop in your mood when their name appears on a screen, you honor it as the wisdom of your body, a clear and simple no, and you act accordingly. The journey does not end with a single, dramatic victory. It is a practice of returning, over and over, to the quiet center you have discovered within yourself. The guilt may never vanish entirely. It is, after all, a deeply carved neural pathway. But it will transform. It will change from a roaring tyrant whose every command you must obey into a quiet, occasional visitor. It might knock on your door during a moment of stress or loneliness, but now you don't have to let it in. You can look through the peephole and say, "I see you. Thank you for the reminder of how far I've come." And you can go back to tending the warm, gentle fire in your own hearth. This is the homecoming. It is the end of the frantic search for a home in another person's approval, and the beginning of cultivating a home within your own being. From this place, true connection becomes possible. You start to attract and be attracted to people who are also whole, who are not looking for a key to their lock, but for another sovereign individual to walk beside. You will discover that your kindness, now rooted in self-respect, is more potent than ever. It is no longer a desperate plea to be loved, but a calm, generous offering from a full cup. You can be deeply compassionate without being consumed. You can love freely because your love is no longer conditional on your own self-erasure. Look back at the path you have walked. See the ghost of the person who carried that heavy coat of goodness, bent under its weight. See the guilt that was the invisible chain. Feel the grief for the dream you had to let go of. Honor it all. Every step of that painful journey was necessary. It was the immense pressure that forged the diamond of your own sovereign self. And now, stand here, in the quiet of this present moment. Feel the solid ground beneath your feet. Feel the air fill your lungs, deeply and completely. You are no longer a reflection in someone else's mirror. You are the source of your own light. And you are, finally, gloriously, unshakably free.